I wasn't supposed to see it. But once I did, there was no unseeing it. Let him close the deal, then cut him loose.
7 words. One knife through everything I thought I'd earned.
My name is Julian Cross. I'm 35 years old. For the past 8 years, I've worked as the AI strategy lead at Stratus Point Technologies based in San Francisco. I'm not flashy. I don't chase credit. I build precision plans that win contract systems that don't break numbers that never lie. They used to call me the quiet engine. I wore that like armor. While others chased titles, I built infrastructure. And tonight, we were celebrating the biggest deal in company history. $44 million. 10-year rollout. Full-stack AI integration for Lucas Tech. I was seated across from the Lucas Tech team on the rooftop of a fine dining restaurant. Lights above us, laughter around us, the scent of wine and seared scallops in the air. Everything felt cinematic. Perfect. Until Ethan Maddox stood up to take a call. His phone was on the table face up. I wasn't trying to look. I was reaching to adjust my glass. But then it lit up. A message appeared from Owen Reese, our new CEO. It said, "Let him close the deal, then cut him loose." 7 words. And just like that, the night cracked open. I froze, my hand suspended midair. The wine nearly tipped. I blinked. The message didn't disappear. It burned itself into the back of my mind, etched itself into something deeper than memory, something personal. Across the table, no one noticed. The Lucas Tech team was deep in conversation, laughing about a supplier misfire or a team retreat in Tahoe. But all I could hear was that message. All I could feel was a cold click inside me. We had spent 9 months building this deal. I had built every clause, every safeguard, every revenue model from scratch. And now they were waiting for me to hand it in and vanish. When Ethan came back, he smiled that usual grin, perfect teeth, empty eyes. But something in his face shifted. A flicker, a squint. He knew I'd seen it. I smiled back, calm, smooth. Let the game begin. Dinner continued like theater. Toasts, praise, surface-level charm. Ethan raised his glass and complimented cross-functional synergy. I clinked mine in sync. I played the part. But I wasn't really there anymore. Not in the way they thought. I watched him closely now. The way he checked his phone every few minutes. The way his fingers twitched on the stem of his glass. The wrong laugh at the wrong time. The small cracks in a polished performance. Then came the moment that cemented everything. Eric Lane, COO of Lucas Tech, turned to me and said, "Julian, your leadership on this has been phenomenal. Frankly, if you were running the whole show, we'd have signed this last month." Before I could respond, the waiter leaned over and said, "Always a pleasure serving the CEO and his team." He looked at me when he said it, and Ethan's grip tightened so hard around his glass that his knuckles turned white. He didn't say a word, but in that moment I saw everything. This wasn't just a handoff. They weren't just planning to let me go. They were planning to let me finish it, and then erase me. I sat up straighter, took a breath, let the lights blur and the warmth fade, and I smiled. Not for them, for me, because something had cracked. Not inside me, but around me. And I was already planning what to do with that fracture. The sweetness of the wine had long faded by the time I got home. I took off my blazer, draped it over the chair, and stared out at the city skyline. The same skyline I once found so inspiring now felt distant, cold, smaller somehow. And the memories started arriving, one by one. 3 missed promotions. The first after I negotiated the Lockwell contract almost entirely on my own. $10 million. My name on every page. But the recognition, Ethan got the title bump. He had only been at the company 6 months. He wasn't even in the state when I pitched Lockwell in person. I swallowed the insult and kept going. The second during the Zenitech deal. I was told I was too valuable in my current role to promote. A strategic hold. That's what they called it. The third just 6 months ago. I built a pitch deck, mentored 2 junior associates, updated my internal scorecards, and waited. Nothing. Not even an explanation. Later I heard whispers that I was too sharp, too precise, hard to manage. Apparently a man who doesn't beg for validation is dangerous. That night my phone buzzed. It was my father. I didn't want to answer, but I did. "Hey, Dad," I said, trying to sound light. "Hey, son, just checking in." You sounded off the other day. I'm good, I lied. You sure? Yeah. You've been working so hard. I just hope they see it. There was a pause. I forced a smile into my voice. Of course they do. But behind my teeth, the truth was bitter. I set the phone down and stared at my own reflection in the dark window. I didn't know it yet, but this was the night everything changed. Because when they decided to cut me loose, they forgot one thing. I don't start fights, but I never lose the ones I finish. The city was still awake when I opened my laptop. I didn't know what I was looking for at first, just something to anchor myself. But my fingers moved with purpose like they knew before I did. There it was, a folder I hadn't touched in weeks. Q4_restructure_proposal.pdf. It had been sent by Leo, my assistant, my only real ally at Stratus Point. He hadn't added a subject line. Just one message: you didn't get this from me. I opened it. At first glance, it looked like a typical corporate reshuffle leadership tracks division maps role transitions. But by page 6, my name was nowhere. Not listed. Not mentioned. Not even flagged as a potential. Instead, Ethan Maddox's name was everywhere. Team lead. Strategic director. East Coast expansion. They had already decided who would get the spotlight after the Lucas Tech deal closed. And it wasn't me. I stared at the screen. The bile rose slowly, bitter and quiet. The kind that doesn't explode, it curdles, thick and heavy. They didn't just plan to erase me. They had already written the next chapter without me in it. I closed the file, leaned back in my chair, and sat there, silent. Then I let myself feel it. The bitterness, the weight of years, of being told almost, of watching others smile through work I had built, of watching Ethan claim victories he couldn't even explain. I remembered Lockwell. $10 million. I flew to their HQ in Chicago with 24 hours notice when their CTO got cold feet. I turned that meeting around in under an hour. They signed that same week. Stratus Point gave me a framed thank you card. Ethan got promoted. I remembered Xenotech. When the deal was on the edge of collapse because of a vendor delay, I rebuilt the deployment model in 48 hours. I got called essential. Then I got told I was too important where I was to be moved up. I remembered building the mentorship program, training new hires, building culture decks, guiding 2 teams during a transition phase. No bonus, no title change, just silence. And now, after the Lucas Tech deal, they were going to drop me. Like I was nothing, a tool, a bridge, meant to be walked across, not walked with. That's when I remembered a conversation from 2 months ago. One I had almost forgotten, but it came back word for word. Eric Lane had invited me to lunch. Off the record. He said he liked to talk shop in neutral spaces. So we met at a quiet cafe in Soma. Brick walls, reclaimed wood tables, soft jazz humming through the air. I figured it'd be small talk, delivery timelines, post-launch support, maybe a little negotiation prep. But once our drinks arrived, he just looked at me, like he was studying something. Then he said, "Julian, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure," I said, a little cautious. "Why are you still there?" I blinked. "Excuse me." He shrugged. "I've seen your decks, your projections, the structure. That's your mind on paper, not Ethan's. Yours. So why are you still letting someone else carry the title for your work?" I gave the usual answer. "It's a team effort, shared credit." He didn't flinch. "You're better than shared credit." I didn't respond, just stirred my coffee. He leaned forward. "Look, I'm not trying to poach you. I just want you to know if you ever build something of your own, we'd fund it." I laughed, awkward, surprised. "That's generous." "I don't do hypotheticals," he said. "Not when I've already said no to deals that looked flashier but had less integrity." That stayed with me. Even when I left the cafe. Even when I told myself it didn't mean anything. But now it meant everything. Because someone had seen me, not as a contributor, not as a background operator, but as a founder. That night I didn't open a spreadsheet. I opened a question. What if I could? What if I stopped playing their game? What if I built something that didn't need permission? Not just in theory, in practice. I didn't tell anyone, not my father, not Leo, not even the friends I trusted most. I just started. At 2 a.m. I searched LLC Formation, California. By 3 a.m., I was reading tax law articles and regulatory checklists like bedtime stories. I wasn't dreaming.
I was drafting.
The blueprint wasn't a fantasy. It was a plan, and soon it would become a structure no one could take from me. A week after that night, I found myself sitting across from a man named Malcolm Reyes. Gray hair, crisp voice. A lawyer who used to work inside Stratus Point's compliance department before he walked away quietly like most principled people do when the game becomes dirty. We met in a small office off Market Street. No logos, no windows. Just a wooden desk, a clock that ticked a little too loudly, and the kind of silence that meant business. I want something clean, I told him. Something no one can trace. He didn't blink. Just tapped his pen once and said, "You want it airtight." I nodded. No shortcuts, no overlaps, no paper trail leading back to Stratus Point. He smiled, thin and precise. "We can do that." And we did. Malcolm filed the LLC under a discreet holding name, Harbor and Row. A quiet nod to the street I grew up on and the middle name of my grandfather. It meant nothing to anyone else, but to me it meant home. He drafted every document with surgical care. No templates, no boilerplate, custom clauses that buried ownership 3 layers deep. Just in case. He helped me open a business account at a local credit union. No digital signatures, in person only. One ID, no ties to my work email, no branding, no logo, just a number, a folder, and a new beginning. It wasn't a company yet, not really, but it was a container, and I was going to fill it. Still, I wasn't reckless. I didn't transfer documents. I didn't talk in elevators. I didn't download a single proprietary file. If I was going to do this, I would do it clean. But Leo noticed. Of course he did. Late one evening, I stayed back in the team server room, just staring, not moving files, not touching anything, just watching the backup logs scroll by like code written in Morse. He stepped in, arms crossed, quiet as always. "You're not watching backup logs for fun," he said. I turned, startled. "Just some late admin cleanup." He raised an eyebrow. "That's the worst lie you've ever told." I didn't answer. I just smiled faintly and closed the window. He paused, then stepped closer. "Whatever it is, I'm in, unless you tell me not to be." There was a long silence between us. I could have waved him off, could have lied again, but there was something steady in his voice, something I trusted. So I pulled a small USB drive from my bag, held it out. No names, no details, just the client decks, my versions, clean files, nothing owned, nothing signed. He didn't flinch. "Give me 2 hours," he said. And he did. That night, while most of the team was scrolling dinner apps or half-watching shows on their phones, Leo sat in the server room with headphones on, quietly copying everything I'd authored over the last 18 months. Strategy briefs, risk models, budget frameworks, all original, all mine. No stolen code, no company headers, no confidential data, just the bones of what I'd built. When he was done, he handed me the drive and said, "It's on a clean partition. No metadata, you're good." I nodded. "Thank you," I whispered. He paused before walking out. "Whatever you're building, it's already stronger than what they think they own." When the door closed behind him, I sat in the dark. The USB still cold in my hand. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't rebellion. This was preparation. It was the plan I never thought I'd need. Until now, the contract was ready. $44 million. A 10-year AI infrastructure rollout for Lucas Tech. It was clean, complete, locked. I had rewritten every clause myself, tightened every loophole, structured every milestone. From licensing tiers to data security benchmarks, every inch of that deal had my fingerprints. It wasn't a team effort. It was mine, and I was about to sign it over to people who didn't plan to keep me. Ethan came by my desk around 6:45 that evening. Everyone else had gone home. The office was quiet, and the floor was dim except for the blue glow of screensavers and hallway lights. "There he is," he said, voice too casual, tie loosened just enough to seem human. He clapped his hands together softly. "The closer." I didn't look up, just nodded once. Eric confirmed, "They're ready." He walked over and stood behind me, pretending to scan the screen. His voice shifted lower, smoother. "You've done incredible work, Julian. Really, you should be proud." There it was again, that practiced tone, too polished around the edges. I used to hear it as praise, Now I recognized it for what it was. A send-off. I nodded again. Appreciate it. He lingered 1 second too long, then turned and walked out. Let's make history, he said over his shoulder. The door clicked shut behind him, and I exhaled. Alone in the silence, I hovered my mouse over the send for signature button. My cursor paused. 1 click and it would be theirs. 1 click and I'd hand them the crown jewel. Then came the voice, the one I used to silence. Wait. And right then Leo slipped through the door. Quiet. Focused. Hey, he whispered. I tilted my head. Everything okay? He walked to me quickly. You didn't hit send, right?
No, why?
He glanced toward the glass walls, then back at me. I heard something. From HR. What kind of something? He lowered his voice even more. They're prepping a restructuring announcement. Layoffs. I frowned. It's Q4. Not unusual. He leaned in. Julian, I heard your name. My stomach dropped, but I kept my face still. Are you sure? Not 100%. But I trust who I heard it from. I turned back to the screen. The contract stared back at me. Still unsent, Leo added. They said wait until next week before making anything official. That's all he said. He didn't need to say more. If I sent the contract tonight, they'd have everything. The deal, the credit, the leverage, and no reason to keep me. I closed the document and powered down my laptop. Thanks, I said quietly. We hold for now. Leo nodded once and left without another word. I stood in the low light, arms crossed, staring at nothing. I didn't feel panic. I didn't feel rage. I felt something deeper. Control. Because for the first time in a long time, they didn't own the outcome. I had the client. I had the contract. And they had no idea what I was about to do with both. The next morning started like any other. Coffee in hand. Same elevator. Same mechanical chime. Same hallway hum on the 26th floor. But something felt off. A stillness in the air. Too quiet. Like the building was holding its breath. I approached my desk. Everything looked untouched. The mug Leo had given me. The notepad with half-finished thoughts. The printout of the final contract sitting right where I left it. Then I noticed the door to the glass conference room was slightly ajar. Inside, Ethan was standing with 2 senior managers, huddled around his laptop. Their voices dropped the second I passed. I logged into my workstation. The screen blinked, paused, then flashed red. Access denied. I blinked. Tried again. Same result. I reached for my phone to call IT. But before I could dial, an email alert popped up, still connected through mobile. Subject status update. Sender HR department. Time 9:02 a.m. I clicked, and the world tilted. Your employment with Stratus Point Technologies is terminated effective immediately. Your credentials have been deactivated. Please do not attempt to access company systems. HR will contact you for exit logistics. No salutation, no explanation. Just 5 clipped lines. I reread it, hoping it was a mistake, a glitch. But when I tried to open the secure folder on my desk drive, the reader blinked red. My Slack auto-logged out. My calendar emptied. My email vanished. Gone. I sat frozen. The only sound, the faint buzz of the lights overhead. Then my phone buzzed. Leo? His message was blunt. They cut you off. I just found out. I'm leaving too. I won't stand here and smile while they erase you. Then another message. This time from Miles, a junior analyst I had mentored. Just saw the back-end update in HR. They've reassigned all your projects to Ethan. Your name's not even listed. Not only had they let me go, they were trying to erase me completely. Every trace of my contribution. Every model I'd built. Every plan I'd carried on my back. I stood slowly. Walked to my desk drawer. Something caught my eye. A small manila envelope, no label. I opened it. Inside was a black USB drive. And a sticky note. Leo's handwriting. You'll need this. It's everything you built. My throat tightened. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or throw something through a window. But I didn't do any of those. I just slipped the USB into my pocket. And walked. No goodbyes, no scene. Just out. Into the morning cold. They thought they'd left me empty-handed. But they forgot something. I didn't build all that work for them. I built it because I knew what I was capable of. And now I had it all. The knowledge, the proof, the drive, and the silence I needed to start something real. That night, silence wrapped around my apartment like static. No Slack notifications, no pings, No blinking inbox. Just me, the city beyond the glass, and the weight of everything they thought they'd taken from me. I sat on the floor, laptop open in front of me. The soft blue glow of the screen spilled across my knees. One file was open. Barnes_A_infra_final_V31.pdf. The contract I'd spent nearly a year engineering. Clause by clause. Risk by risk. Opportunity by opportunity. $44 million. 10 years of infrastructure build-out. And not a single word of it belonged to them anymore. Not after what they did. I hovered over the file name. Felt the pull of a thought I didn't want to admit. What if I just delete it? Wipe it clean. Let them scramble. Let the last thing I ever did for them be the thing they could never touch. My finger hovered over the delete key. Then my phone rang. Dad. I almost didn't answer. But I did.
Hey, Pops.
His voice came in low and calm like it always had.
Hey, son. Just checking in.
I tried to sound okay. Yeah, long day. He didn't buy it. There was a pause. Then, you know when your mother passed, I didn't tell anyone I cried in the garage for 4 straight nights. I closed my eyes, said nothing. But I did, because sometimes the silence gets loud, huh? A tear slipped down my cheek. Yeah, I whispered. It does. You want me to come down? I can be there by morning. No, Dad. My voice cracked. I'm okay, just need to think. He didn't push. All right, but remember this. He paused. Being cut loose doesn't mean you lost. It just means they didn't know how to hold on to something rare. My chest tightened. You've always been the builder, Julian. Not the buyer. Not the seller. The architect. The reason. And somehow that was all I needed to hear. We hung up. I sat in the dark for a long while. Then I looked at the USB Leo had left me. Set it beside the laptop like a holy artifact. Then something shifted. I opened my old file folder, scrolled through every document I'd created. Original decks, draft models, clean deliverables. I opened a new folder, named it Red Harbor AI, the name I'd already registered quietly 3 weeks ago. Then I renamed the contract file, Red Harbor_signature ready.pdf. I opened Gmail, typed in the name I hadn't spoken aloud in weeks, Nathan Cole. Subject: new signature file attached. Body: thank you for your patience. I'm ready. I attached the file, hovered one last time, then hit send. And just like that, the deal didn't belong to Stratus Point anymore. It belonged to me. Outside San Francisco pulsed under a misty sky. The world had no idea what I had just done, but soon they would. Because I wasn't rebuilding what they broke. I was starting over with blueprints of my own. By 9:04 a.m. the next morning, it was no longer a secret. TechFront Daily had broken the news. Barnes Tech signs $44 million AI infrastructure deal with Red Harbor Solutions, a new firm quietly founded by ex-Stratus Point strategist Julian Ward, closes one of the largest private tech contracts of Q2. They didn't say my name in the headline, but they didn't need to. People who mattered, they knew. The article showed a blurred photo of Nathan Cole shaking hands with an unnamed man face cropped just below the chin. The caption read, "New player in enterprise AI reshapes deal flow." That player was me. I leaned back in my chair, coffee trembling just slightly in my grip. It was done. I'd pulled the deal right out from under them, and I didn't break a single rule. The fallout was immediate. At 9:17, Leo texted me from inside HQ. Marcus slammed his laptop so hard it cracked the screen. I smiled. At 9:20, I got a message from Ava. They're panicking. People asking who the hell is Red Harbor. Marcus hasn't come out of his office. Then the emails started. The first came from Claire Linton, Director of Procurement at Veltrix, one of our legacy partners. Julian just saw the news. We want to move our portfolio to Red Harbor. The leadership here was never loyal to a brand. We were loyal to you. Then from Graham Lee, CTO at Health Metric, not surprised to see you behind this. Honestly, you were the only one who understood our needs. Count us in. And then Elena Patel at Cast Iron Logistics, blunt as ever. So you're Red Harbor. Finally, we stayed because of you. Let's set up migration next week. P.S. Tell Ava she's a damn rock star. Each message felt like a vindication. Not loud, not flashy, just real. Not reputation. Trust. Earned through every overlooked hour, every unseen model, every time I bit my tongue in boardrooms where Marcus took my words and wore them like his own. By noon, I'd stopped counting the emails. Ava sent another quick update. PR team is scrambling. They're trying to spin the Barnes loss as a mutual parting. Lindsay asked if anyone has your contact. I said you deleted LinkedIn. I laughed quietly. At 2:03 p.m., a courier arrived at my shared workspace. A nondescript white envelope. Inside, a handwritten note. We always knew who the real architect was. Welcome to the other side. Claire Veltrix. A sleek matte black pen, engraved with lead. Don't follow. I ran my thumb across the words, and felt something I hadn't in years. Seen. By 3:00 p.m., Marcus tried to call. Twice. Then again. Then came the text. Julian, we need to talk. This is urgent. I didn't respond. Instead, I sent a short message to Alan, my lawyer. They've seen the press. Expect noise. Alan replied in under a minute. Let them sweat. They know they lost the crown jewel. They just haven't admitted it yet. I stood by the window watching the city buzz. People walked below scrolling on phones. Some reading the article. Some not. It didn't matter. Because the only thing louder than a fired strategist is a strategist who walks away with the deal, the clients, and the future. I'd always been the ghost behind the glass ideas, whispered documents, reworded name buried under team contributions. But now the silence was mine, and it was echoing. The courier arrived the next morning. A well-dressed man in a navy vest handed me a heavy envelope white cardstock with a faint watermark of the Stratus Point Legal Division. My name was printed on the front. Not Mr. Julian Ward, just Julian Ward. Inside, a formal letter, 5 paragraphs long. No preamble, no courtesy. Subject pending legal action. Unauthorized use of proprietary information. This correspondence serves as formal notice of your potential violation of contractual boundaries and misuse of intellectual property associated with the Barnes Tech proposal. Should you proceed with client migration, Stratus Point reserves the right to pursue litigation to the fullest extent of the law. I didn't read the rest. I'd seen this tactic before. It wasn't about the law. It was about fear. I slid the letter across the cafe table to Alan, seated across from me, stirring his espresso like this was just another Tuesday. He glanced over the contents, let out a dry chuckle. You know who signed this? He held up the bottom of the page. Matthew Ivers, head of legal, newly promoted. He was my intern, Alan said flatly, eyes glinting. Bright kid, still green. Thinks intimidation is strategy. I raised a brow. So what's our move? Alan grinned. You want to play chess with the company that once classified you as a consulting contractor to avoid giving you stock options and benefits? He leaned in, tapping the envelope. Julian, they don't have a case. You didn't sign an IP clause. They never upgraded your employment contract. The documents you authored weren't proprietary until after they terminated you. I exhaled slowly. Then let's reply. Already did, Alan said. He slid his phone across the table. I scrolled. His reply was surgical. A citation of my original onboarding email. IRS tax classification proof as 1099. No IP agreement. No non-compete. No digital footprint breach. And then the closing line, firm and cold. My client will not be intimidated by a corporation that failed to recognize his value contractually or otherwise. I read it 3 times. Each time my pulse slowed. Not out of relief, out of quiet clarity. Alan leaned back, finishing his espresso. You'll never see a courtroom. I looked out the window. That's not what they want anyway. No, he said. They want leverage. And you just pulled it out from under them. That afternoon, I sat on the floor of my apartment, legs stretched out, laptop open. Inbox 43 unread. All clients. All curious. Some angry. Some ready. And then a subject line that made me still. From Ava. Subject they know. Inside the email, Marcus saw the TechFront article. He hasn't spoken since. PR is rewriting the Barnes narrative. Legal is circling, but Alan's reply already hit the exec Slack. You're officially persona non grata. And then this. Also, HR just deleted your internal profile. No trace left. It's like you never existed here. I stared at the screen. They weren't just mad. They were trying to erase me. But here's the truth. You can't delete someone who never needed your name to begin with. That night I sat with the framed photo from years ago, my first day at Stratus Point. No title, no welcome plaque. Just me in an ill-fitting blazer, grinning like a man who thought hard work alone would be enough. I set it down. Opened a blank folder on my drive. Folder name built in silence. Inside, I dropped one file. Barnes_tech_Red Harbor _signed_final.pdf. I hovered over the folder, then clicked pin to desktop. Let them erase me. I'll rewrite the record. I didn't answer the first phone call, or the second. By the fourth, I finally glanced at the screen.
Marcus Brennan.
I let it ring. I didn't even bother to block the number. Let him hear the dial tone. Let him know how it feels to be ignored. Because this time, I was busy building. At 9:04 a.m., my inbox dinged again, this time not with panic, but with promise. Subject line, Barnes Tech Partnership Press Release. Now live up. The headline glared from the top of the page like a red flag on a battlefield. Barnes Tech finalizes $44 million AI infrastructure deal with independent firm Red Harbor Solutions. Independent firm. Not Stratus Point. Not Brennan and Company. The article was clinical, as tech news tends to be. But for those who knew the backstory, it read like a declaration of war. One sentence buried halfway down the piece said it all. The firm's founder, former Stratus Point strategist Julian Ward, will now lead Red Harbor's AI deployment roadmap. There it was. Not buried in a footnote. Not ghostwritten for someone else. My name, my roadmap, my company. By 9:13 a.m., the chain reaction had begun. Ava messaged first. Just walk past Marcus's office. His door's closed. His voice is raised. He's spiraling. A few seconds later, Lindsay from PR asked 3 different interns who Red Harbor Solutions is. No one had an answer. I just said cool name and walked away. I laughed into my coffee. Then another message landed, this one from an unexpected source. From Sarah T., junior analyst. I hadn't spoken to her since mentoring her during a side project. Julian. Just wanted to say I saw the article. Everyone here knew the Barnes deal was yours. Watching you go out on your own, it's honestly inspiring. Just wanted to say thank you for showing what's possible. I didn't realize how much I needed that. How good it felt to be seen by someone who wasn't trying to use me. By 10:32 a.m. Ava sent another update. FYI, Marcus just told Linda we've lost leverage. It's out of our hands. Those words, I sat with them, rolled them around in my mind like a slow exhale. Leverage. He always thought he had it. But the truth is, Marcus never built leverage. He borrowed it. He climbed a ladder someone else built. And now that someone had taken the ladder with him on the way out. At 11:01, a new name popped up. Claire Hoskins, Director of Procurement, Veltic Solutions. We'd worked together 2 years ago. Built systems from the ground up. Subject, let's talk. Saw the Barnes deal. We always knew who was doing the real work. Our leadership is interested in moving our entire account to Red Harbor. No pitches needed. Just send terms. I stared at the message. This wasn't just validation. This was momentum. I replied with a simple, let's connect tomorrow. I'll send a clean proposal by noon. And then I leaned back and let it land. By lunchtime, the inbox had changed tones. No longer confusion. Just gravity. Another email arrived. Elena Patel, Logistics Director at Cast Iron. Heard about Red Harbor. Let's skip the PR fluff. We know you're the reason we stuck through the last upgrade. We're ready to transition. Also, please tell me Ava's with you. I forwarded that last line to Ava, who replied, I just made it my Slack status. But the message that hit the deepest, 2:47 p.m., from Daniel Chen, CEO Barnes Tech. We're ready to deepen the partnership. When you're ready to talk product, we're ready to talk investment. Let's set up time next week. Congratulations, Julian. I sat frozen for a beat. This wasn't just a continuation. It was a signal. Daniel wasn't renewing a vendor contract. He was investing in my future. That night, I stood in my new co-working office. No nameplate yet, no branded mugs. Just a desk, a chair, and a whiteboard full of plans. I stared out the window down at the street below San Francisco's messy, brilliant blur of ambition. Ava's last message of the day buzzed on my screen. We're really doing this, huh? I typed slowly. We're not starting something. We're just owning what we already built. It came in a heavy envelope. Cream cardstock, no return address. But the watermark across the top said it all. Stratus Point Legal Department, San Francisco HQ. Inside a letter, this correspondence serves as formal notice of pending legal action regarding unauthorized client interference and breach of proprietary agreements. I didn't finish reading. I didn't need to. They were suing me. I slid the letter across the cafe table toward Alan Ridgway, ex-Stratus Point attorney, now my counsel, and the reason I hadn't broken a sweat. He sipped his espresso, adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses, and smirked like he was looking at a napkin doodle, not a threat. "They're trying to make noise," he said calmly. "You took their crown jewel. They're panicking." He flipped to the last page. "Look at that," he muttered. "Matthew Ivers. He's the one signing this." I raised an eyebrow.
Know him.
Alan gave a half chuckle. He was my intern, fresh out of Berkeley. Bright, naive. Thought corporate loyalty was a personality trait. I almost laughed. Instead, I exhaled through my nose and leaned back. "So what happens now?" Alan waved dismissively. "They've got nothing. No non-compete. No IP clause. You were a contractor, remember?" Oh, I remembered. Every time I asked for full-time status, they'd stalled. Said I was too valuable in a flexible capacity. Translation: they wanted my mind, but not my benefits. And now that technicality would be their undoing. By the time I walked out of that cafe, Alan had already drafted the reply. I read it in the back seat of my Lyft home eyes, moving over the words like a slow-burning match. My client will not be intimidated by a company that failed to recognize his value on paper or otherwise. That one hit me in the gut. I reread it 3 times. No fire, no revenge fantasy. Just truth weighted with precision. That night, Ava texted me, "They just got your lawyer's reply. HR is rattled. Marcus hasn't said a word in 2 hours." I replied, "Let them sit in it." She answered with just 5 words. "They poked the wrong man." The next morning, I walked into the Red Harbor space, still minimalist, still half-furnished, and made my usual stop at the wall beside my desk. There, framed under glass, hung the screenshot. "Let him finish the deal, then cut him loose. Sent at 7:52 p.m. 3 months ago." The words that tried to bury me now watched over me like a promise I'd outlived. I straightened the frame, as I did every morning. At 9:17 a.m., the ripple became a wave. Tech Edge Morning Report. 5 key clients officially exit Stratus Point as Red Harbor Solutions surges past $130 million valuation in Series A projections. Nabilene, no quote from me, but buried in the 3rd paragraph. Led by founder Julian Ward, a former strategist at Stratus Point, whose departure triggered the shift.
Trigger. That's what I had become.
The variable they hadn't calculated. I was making coffee when my phone buzzed again. A name flashed that I hadn't seen since college. Tessa Green, now a staff writer at Business Front. "Julian, I've been following your rise. I'd love to run a founder profile. No fluff, just story." I stared at the message. The press was knocking now. Not because of scandal, because of substance. I replied simply, "Let's talk next week." Story still unfolding. That afternoon, a delivery arrived at the front desk. Ben, the community manager, brought it in a white envelope and a narrow black box. Inside, a handwritten card from Claire at Veltic. We always knew who we were really working with. "Lead on." The box contained a sleek engraved pen, etched on the barrel in silver script. "Draw the map, don't follow it." I held it in my hand for a long time, not as a trophy, as a tool. Because validation doesn't always arrive with applause. Sometimes it arrives quietly in messages from those who remembered your name when others tried to erase it. Sometimes it comes printed in bold font on an article you didn't write, but you made happen. And sometimes it's carved into a pen held by the hand they thought would never sign a contract again. It started with a single message. Subject: "Just saw the news." From Claire Hoskins, Director of Procurement at Veltic Solutions. A woman I'd negotiated a dozen contracts with sat across boardroom tables from survived scope creep and queue for chaos beside. "Julian, we just saw the Tech Edge headline. I don't know the full story, but I do know this. We're moving our entire portfolio under Red Harbor. The leadership here voted unanimously. We weren't loyal to the logo. We were loyal to you." I didn't breathe for a full 10 seconds. And then, ping, another message. Graham Lee, CTO at Onyx Care Health Tech. We'd onboarded his team last quarter. Long nights. Aggressive rollout. He barely blinked through the chaos. "Not surprised to see you behind the Barnes deal. We always knew the real architect. Tell me what you need to get us migrated." Ping. Again. Elena Patel, Cast Iron Logistics. Once told me I was the only person in this industry who listens before talking. "Julian, skip the PR. We know who kept us through those reorgs. Let's migrate. Also tell me Ava's with you." That girl's a storm wrapped in sunshine. I actually laughed, forwarded it to Ava. Her reply, starting to think we need a client wall. This email deserves a gold frame. At 12:47 p.m., my inbox dinged again. Daniel Chen, CEO of Barnes Tech. Subject, congratulations. We're ready to deepen our partnership. When you're ready to talk product development, we're interested in funding options.
Let's set a meeting next week.
Short, clean, classic Daniel. But every word hit with precision. He wasn't just renewing. He wanted in. Not because of Red Harbor's track record. We didn't have one. Not because of Stratus Point's ghosted reputation. Because of me. The man behind the strategy. The one they tried to cut loose, now writing the terms. At 2:00 sharp, I stood by the tall windows of our new co-working space, not fancy, just functional, staring down at the streets of San Francisco. Outside, the city pulsed like it always had. But inside, something had changed. I wasn't trying to get back what they took.
I was building what they couldn't.
No corner office, no title to chase. Just a whiteboard, a plan, and my name finally leading, not lurking. Then came a knock on the glass wall behind me. Ben popped his head in. Another delivery, he said, grinning. You're becoming a favorite. This time, it was smaller, just a plain envelope. Inside, a note. From my mother. Julian, I saw the headline this morning. You don't have to explain it. I always knew you weren't meant to fit someone else's frame. You were meant to build your own. My hands shook as I folded the note, slid it into the drawer next to the engraved pen from Claire, and sat down. I opened my inbox again. 11 new messages from procurement leads. 2 from investors I hadn't pitched. And 1 from Marcus. Julian, we should talk. Urgent. I stared at it. Didn't open it. Just forwarded it to Alan, my lawyer, with 1 line. Do we respond? Alan replied 30 seconds later. Not yet. Let silence work. So I did. Closed the message. Brewed a cup of coffee. Pulled up the next deck. I was building this time, not for approval. For launch. Because validation didn't come from their recognition anymore. It came from the names in my inbox. Real people, real trust, real belief. And this time they weren't just staying. They were following. Not because I shouted, but because I stood. Quietly. Unshakably. The end wasn't revenge. It was revelation. The letter came by courier. Heavy cardstock. Stratus Point's letterhead embossed in gray. Their legal department's watermark faint but unmistakable. Inside it began the way cowards always strike. This correspondence serves as formal notice of pending legal action regarding unauthorized client interference and breach of proprietary agreements. I didn't finish it. Didn't need to. They were suing me for outmaneuvering them legally. For claiming my own work. For refusing to play by the rules they bent around me for years. I slid the envelope across the table to Alan Ridgely, who was sipping espresso across from me in our shared downtown conference room. His reading glasses dipped as he skimmed it. He snorted. They're panicking. This isn't about winning. It's about rattling the cage. I leaned back, arms folded. Let them rattle. Alan flipped the page, chuckled, then held it up. Signed by Matthew Ivers, their newly minted in-house counsel. I smirked. I'd met Matthew once, fresh-faced, hungry, sharp, but green. Alan gave me a sideways look. Funny, he used to intern for me, back when I wore discount suits and wrote contracts by hand. He folded the letter again. We'll respond tomorrow. You won't see a courtroom. Confident, I asked. Alan nodded. Julian, you were never even technically an employee. They kept you on contract to avoid paying benefits. No non-compete, no IP clauses. They buried their own knife. By the next morning, Alan had crafted a legal reply so surgical it might as well have drawn blood. No emotion, no ego, just facts. My client will not be intimidated by the same company that refused to recognize his value on paper or otherwise. I read that line 4 times, and then I smiled. I didn't reply to Marcus's voicemails. Didn't answer Linda from PR when she emailed asking if we could clear the air. I forwarded them to Ava with a 2-word note. Let them wonder. She replied, they're holding emergency all hands. Marcus hasn't come out of his office in hours. I poured myself a coffee, and in the silence of that moment I realized, they didn't destroy me, they proved me. Later that week, a package arrived. A sleek wooden box, no return address. Inside, an engraved plaque. Built by Belief 44 Million Reasons Why. It was from Daniel at Barnes. I mounted it on the wall behind my desk. Next to it, I framed the very thing that started this all. Let him finish the deal, then cut him loose. 7:52 p.m. No name, no logo, just betrayal immortalized. They thought it would erase me. Instead, it became my foundation. At 10:23 a.m., my mother walked into my office. San Francisco's sun pouring through the windows. She moved slower now, the knees a little stiffer, but her eyes were sharp, taking in everything. The white oak floors, the ficus in the corner, the rows of client folders, the plaque. She walked over to the frame. Read the words, paused, then turned to me with a look I'll never forget. They didn't fire you, she said. They freed you. I swallowed hard, nodded once. Yeah, they did. She smiled, something flickering behind it, fierce, proud. And you walked out with the very thing they thought they were taking. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because we both knew. At noon, Ava peeked into the office. Julian, TechEdge just published an update. You want to see? I raised an eyebrow. She held up her phone. StratusPoint loses 5 major clients in 72 hours. Red Harbor valuation triples. Julian Reyes named the most trusted name in AI infrastructure. No press team, no campaign, no PR firm. Just work, integrity, and one truth too powerful to be silenced. That afternoon I stood alone at the window. The city moved as always, impatient, roaring bright. But for once I wasn't running after it. I was leading in it, not chasing legacy, becoming it. People asked me later if I ever regretted it, leaving the security, the salary, the system. My answer never changed. They cut me loose. I chose to fly. And somewhere along the way, I taught the world to watch.